All right, in this video, we're gonna go over how to do a crossover. I've spent a lot of time both studying this move and teaching it. I've taught it to a lot of different people, and I'm gonna take you through a progression that goes over both little details and big details that'll make your crossover nasty. Okay, the first thing I like to start people with is making sure that they're comfortable with the ball wide and off of their hips. If you're not comfortable with the ball wide and off your hips and you're only able to get the ball right around here, then your crossover is going to be very, very limited. Now this comes down to ball control, so we're gonna go over a few drills that you can do both stationary and non-stationary to work on getting the ball off of your hips. With everything we do here, make sure that the ball's not stopping here. We're gonna do some crossovers. This is not correct. We wanna get the ball all the way outside of your frame. The next progression of this is making sure that you're mobile enough to actually drop into a low position where you're shifting your weight. So if you look at the best ball handlers in the world who have the best crossover, they're consistently able to shift their weight, and it looks like this. They'll be getting into this position. Notice the back foot is on the sole and my knee's getting close to the ground. So my shin's going from here to here. If you look at like Kemba Walker, Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving, they're consistently able to get here, where their knees basically almost hitting the ground. Even bigger guys like Paul George and Kevin Durant are able to get into that position. So no matter what your size is, you should be able to get into this position. And so we're gonna go through a little mobility circuit to work on that. The first thing I like to start people with is the ball on the ground, and you're gonna be rolling the ball. So I call them ball rolls. So you're gonna hold it on either your right or your left side, whatever side it is. You're gonna get the opposite hand on the outside of the ball, and then you're just gonna roll it over. Now notice when I roll it over, my back foot or the opposite foot of where it's going. So if it's going left, my right. If it's going right, it's my left. That is the knee that caves down to the ground. Notice I'm able to do this without my heel spiking up like that. That's going to take some mobility. A lot of people can do this, but they have to go like this and fully turn their body that way. When you're really mobile enough, you'll be able to drop into this position with your heel down and your foot staying there instead of hiking up like that. So the first progression is here, very slowly, here, and just trying to get that knee very close to the ground, rotating the hip in, letting the ankle kind of cave down here. That's the first progression. Next thing is you're gonna do the same exact motion with your feet and with your knees and shins, but you're gonna be dribbling the ball. So you're crossing over now. You don't have to worry so much about getting it wide here, but again, slowly, and I'm dropping my knee in, rotating my hip so I can get close to the ground. Every time I'm thinking about shifting my weight over to that same side, so if I'm on my right, my left is dropping in, I'm shifting my weight over to this right. Next, what you're going to be doing is the same exact thing, but we're actually going to be stepping out with it. So the first thing I like to do is a cross between. And I'll give you extra points if you're able to touch the ground, because it really forces you to be accountable and low. So if I go cross in between, I'll stay here and I'm gonna step with it, but I'm gonna touch, cross, touch, cross, touch, cross. Notice when I'm touching towards the foot. That's my front foot. I'm not just touching on the ground. And when I do that, notice the knee and the shin is getting close to the ground, just like we talked about. So I'm just gonna get here, here, and then I can switch, constantly going with that. And there's a bunch of things you can do. You can go cross between, you can go dropping into it instead of just stepping out. You can go here, here. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but we're trying to make sure that the mobility is there so that you can actually get into these low positions with the shin low, the knee low, and the hip rotated in. Now that we're comfortable with the ball wide and we're comfortable with a little bit of mobility, we're actually gonna get into a crossover going to the rim. So the first thing I like to start people with is either your left or your right foot down. The opposite hand is gonna be holding the ball and the opposite foot is gonna be up. So I'm holding it in my right hand, my right knee is up, my left foot is down. So I'm holding it like this. From this position, I'm falling into a crossover, again, trying to make sure that I get my knee to cave down and I shift my weight over to my right foot. Make sure that you don't step out to the side, but we're stepping out kind of diagonally. In basketball, you're never really going to the side, but you're also never really going forward. There's a defender in front of you, so the space is usually kind of at a 45-degree angle. So it'll look like this. If I start my right hand holding the ball, kind of like a waitress holds a plate, my right knee is up, and then I'm just falling into it and crossing over and getting to the rim. So now that we're able to do that with one foot down and kind of falling into it, now you're gonna have both feet actually move. So you're gonna get into what's called a drop. Different people have different names for this. Essentially what it is the back foot hits the ground first, then your front foot hits the ground. And that back foot is kind of projecting you forward to shift your weight onto that front foot. So it looks like this. If I do it off of a dribble, I'm gonna take the dribble left, right, and that's my drop right there. This is a very common set of footwork. If you ever see KD get into his hezzy, he'll go here, left, right, pull, or the other way, and that will be right, left, and pull. It's the same exact set of footwork, but you're gonna actually cross over with it. So I actually usually start with people without dribbling the ball, again, kind of holding it like this, and they're just getting comfortable with left, right, and then cross. Next thing is the same exact set of footwork, but with the dribble. So now instead of holding it and dropping left, right, or right, left, you're gonna actually take that dribble, and then whatever the opposite foot is, that's the foot that goes back first. So it'll be dribble, left, right. Notice when my left foot hits the ground, that's dropping my shoulders and getting me into that position. I'm still thinking about getting this ball widened off my hip, and I'm still thinking about shifting my weight over with this low shin here. The next progression is floating into the crossover. There's a bunch of different ways you can float. You can cross float. Some people call this an in and out float. You can go between, a bunch of different ways to do it, but essentially what you're doing is trying to sort of float outside of your frame, kind of relax, and then drop into the crossover. So a lot of the best crossovers will be right after a float. So when I float here, you can do different ones. Some people will go behind the back, some people will go under. I think the most common ones will probably be the cross, the between, or the in and out, or sometimes people will just keep it in the same hand, float and then go, or float and then cross, or float and then shoot. So you can see the options start to pile up, but obviously we're talking about a crossover here. Me, I like going between the legs to my left. I like crossing though to my right. So what I'll do here is I'll float between and then get into that crossover. Again, all the same focuses, ball wide, shifting my weight, dropping my shin. When you're floating, notice my chest will be up and I'm relaxed in this position. And it's the same drop footwork where this back foot hits the ground and then my shoulders get into that low athletic stance, and that's when I'm accelerating. So I'm relaxed and then I go, or I cross, or I shoot, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's the basic progression to work on the cross. Once you're able to get through all those levels and you're at that last level where you're just sort of repping out the footwork and the move, this is where these little details will come through. So I'm gonna mention two small details that I want you to look at. When you cross, the free hand, so the hand that's not holding the ball, you want that hand to come up. All right, the reason for it is it helps you shift your weight. It makes the defender think you're going that way, because if I'm going right, let's say I just float and I go, this arm is gonna come up in a natural motion to swing, right? Because when you run, you swing your arms. So if you just notice somebody float and then go, this arm is coming up. For some reason, a lot of people when they cross though, they keep this arm down. For one, this actually makes your shoulders move more that way. And it also is more realistic to the natural motion of you just going that way rather than crossing. The timing of this is important. A lot of times when I mention this to people, as soon as they float, they'll have this arm up. That's not what you wanna do. You want the arm to come up after your foot hits the ground. So right foot's gonna hit the ground and then I'm getting into it. It's the same time when I'm dropping and my shoulders go. So from relaxed to not relaxed, that's when the arm comes up. All right, so just let it kind of get up and rotate you this way and then cross. The last little detail I'll mention is a lot of people have issues with getting the ball picked after the crossover. So they'll cross right here and then the ball will just kind of get poked out like that. There's a couple reasons people get picked. One, if you start moving forward before you really complete the crossover, that's a big red flag. So if you cross like this and you start moving forward before you actually fully completed this cross, then you probably will get it picked if you don't shift your defender. The next two things which are pretty common is people don't let this ball float off of their hip. It's like the same thing as a regular crossover. They'll keep this ball right there on their hip. You want to pocket it and pull it back and let it kind of float off of your hip. So when you cross, don't let it get stopped right here. cross and then let it flow all the way out here. People like to pick right around this hip. If you have it off your hip, people are less likely to get it. The last thing, which if you put all these together, you're much less likely to get the ball stolen, is turn your shoulder. So if I cross here and I just let it float off, it's not as good as if I cross here, let it float off, and turn my shoulder. This is something you don't have to do unless you see your defender did not get moved over. So if you move your defender over, you don't really have to worry about it all. But let's say you don't move your defender over and he's still kind of right there starting to reach, then you can get into the shoulder turn with the ball kind of off of your hip. And so that's a crossover. A lot of little details and big details to go over here, but that's the progression that I like to take people through and that I found success with and what my players have found success with. The mobility aspect in particular is what's going to be the separator for a lot of people. A lot of people can still get the ball wide, but they can't really drop into those low positions, so they're not really able to shift their weight, and that's both a speed thing and a mobility thing. So those are things I think you should particularly focus on. For more basketball tips, like, comment, and subscribe to David Avak.